And welcome back. Last time we talked about natural selection, kind of the basics of the start of evolution. I kind of want to review that because it's such an important point in what we're going to continue to do. Natural selection. Remember the two key points: survival and reproduction. These traits, do they help the organism to survive, and then pass that trait on to their offspring? And as the environmental conditions change, day to day, year to year, time to time, different traits will be more successful at surviving and reproducing other traits. And over a long period of time, you see these traits change within populations of different organisms. Keep in mind that natural selection acts only on phenotypes, not the genotype, although genotype is in the background and can be helpful with heterozygous individuals, which gets to at a different day, and genetic variation, which is necessary also for natural selection. You need that variety, multiple alleles, multiple genes for the same allele, rather. Without variety, there's nothing to select. And then to get these phenotypes, this genetic variation, you need mutations. Mutations are important. It's going to come back today. Because you need phenotypes, and those phenotypes from those mutations can be helpful, harmful, in which case they're going to go down, possibly just go out of the population altogether, or almost very likely neutral. But as we continue, there are other aspects. Another type of selection, which is artificial selection, which is humans selecting, humans choosing traits. And I think the most common, the most popular, most thought of thing with artificial selection is breeding. Here I found this great picture on the web, different dog breeds, and humans find a trait they like, and then they keep on breeding it and get that trait within the population. I'll spare the details today on how they do that, but it's interesting, I suppose. Another thing I found on the web, which I didn't know about, is wild mustard has given us through artificial selection cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, kale, whatever this fine-looking thing is. Of course, if it's on the web, it must be true. So I'm banking on that. But again, you have some weird mutation there you can make useful, and then you selectively breed that. Many of our fruits are also through artificial selection. I think in the apple. When I was growing up, there were just a couple of varieties of apples in the store. It was red delicious, golden delicious. Now you can pick all sorts of apples, and the farmer finds that one particular good apple and then breeds that as a new tree. Convergent evolution, however, changing tack a little bit here, is this idea where you have the same phenotype creating in the similar environmental conditions from different organisms and different populations. So that environmental condition is causing these traits to be useful across a wide variety of organisms and different populations. They might not have a direct common ancestor in that relative period of time. So here, I found this wings and shape of the body plan. So you have a mammal, a bird, and an insect. But really, today I want to talk to you more about this population genetics and how we have evolution coming about. It's through three primary modes. Really, honestly, it's about genetic change, how we're changing the genes. And to do that, and changing the genes within a population, to do that we have, as we said before, very important. I usually say, when in doubt, these questions, just write down mutation as the reason. So we have mutation, genetic drift, and migration and gene flow, the loss or gain of alleles or genes within a population. So we're going to talk about each of these three individually here next. As a mutation, we've talked about quite a bit already. We have that DNA-based change, which is going to change the RNA, and that RNA will change the protein, which gives you the new phenotype. And that phenotype will be that trait that then can be selected against either as a positive, neutral, or negative. But here's the big thing with mutation. We have mutation all the time. Our cells are going to mutate through errors in replication or something in cell division. But in order for that mutation to be part of the population, it's got to be present in the gamete, in the sperm of the egg. And that gamete then has to be part of the fertilization. It has to be a mutation that is being passed on. If that's not happening, the mutation is effectively useless within that population. You could have a mutation and spread a new arm, but if no one else in that population is getting the new arm, that trait's not going to be very helpful. So that's the big requirement there, is that the mutation's got to be in the gamete. Genetic drift, there are two aspects of this. Genetic drift is just a random change in the alleles, frequency of alleles in the population. And by frequency, it's a percentage, and how many of the alleles, that percentage of the alleles in the population. And we'll get into this more details probably tomorrow about the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium and Hardy-Weinberg equation. We'll do a little math. But genetic drift, there are two types of genetic drift, right? Changing the alleles in the population through random event. First, the bottleneck effect. You get a nice illustration of this. Bottleneck effect is usually from a natural disaster, but again, a random event eliminates or wipes out a large portion, but random portion of the population. Not one particular trait is effective at avoiding this over another. And what you have after the event is a portion of the population that's not representative of the original population. So if you have here, you have this orange, mainly orange and green in the bottle, and the bottleneck effect is named after this. The bottleneck limits how much can come out of the bottle at any one time. It doesn't all flow out. So you have this original population at the end, and it's mainly red. So we have some sort of disaster wiping out a large random chunk of the population, and then over time, after everything's settled, what is now in the population is not representative of the population. The other effect, the other type of genetic drift, is where we have some crazy random part of the population decide, hey, you guys aren't good enough for me anymore, I'm leaving. So they hightail it out of there. And what leaves and colonizes another area, and this area is not going to be usually overlapping with the other area, they're just gone. But in the new population, not representative of the alleles and the percentage of alleles in the original population. Here we've got, looks like butterflies, and in the new population we've got the darker butterflies in the orange, and the white now is gone from the population. So again, both of these have the end result of the new population, not representative of the old population. And again, over time, you're going to get more differences accumulate. But this is the second way in which populations, the genetics of these populations change. First one, remember, mutation. Second one, out genetic drift. We have the bottleneck effect, founder's effect. And lastly, we have migration and gene flow. And so migration and gene flow, when we have organisms for gene flow migration, we have, in this example, the introduction of a new gene. So you've got these brown colored beetles. Now we have a purple one coming in. We're going to mix. And now it's introducing a new gene to that population, and that gene will kind of root itself in that population, and whether it is a trait that is helpful, negative, or neutral will depend upon whether it flourishes in that population or not. You can also have genes and alleles disappear from populations. Kind of think of that from the founder's effect. I think it just fall one trait, kind of leave, and then you have genes leaving. And all of these three help then the population change over time. And that's it for today. Feel free to subscribe and like my video. The more likes, the more views I get, the more points you get. Anyway, tomorrow we'll be back with another great video. See ya.